thanks to Cocolicious VCO for sponsoring this episode.
Hello and welcome to Trenta, 30-something conversations with 30-somethings and the 30-something else. Our guest tonight is someone from whom I always get advice on finance and career in general, and who I just recently found out is the only chartered financial analyst / lawyer in the country, Nuks. So his advice should be legit for tonight's episode on managing personal finances. So everyone, please welcome Julio Bukoy. Hello.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the generous and kind introduction.
Parang speaker talaga. Okay, so I always begin my episode with asking the guests for their ASL. So would you care to give your ASL?
Age 34, sex male, location in Taguig City.
All right. Okay, so to begin, I remember in one of our conversations, you said na parang you were kind of following in the footsteps of our former big boss. Just to give context, Julio and I were workmates in our former workplace. So you're talking about following in the footsteps of our former big boss, who was an investment banker first before venturing into law practice. Does that still hold true today? Or have you always been interested in finance?
Well, I've always been interested in finance. I mean, I wasn't really planning to go to law school to begin with. When I studied for college, it was really finance that I really wanted to pursue. But I figured since it's the career path that I wanted to take, um, I decided in terms of planning to take an MBA in finance instead. So thinking that accounting would be a better foundation. That's why I took up accounting as an undergrad with the intention of pursuing an MBA in finance. But what happened was when I graduated in 2008 in the States, there was a recession there. It's like one of the worst, the global financial crisis. Diba? So parang they really weren't any good finance jobs. It's maraming accounting. I got offers for like accounting positions and everything, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So when I went home, I tried to look for finance jobs in here. And at the time, our economy was still getting ready to boom. It although we weren't affected that much by the crisis, the 2008 crisis, we weren't at that level yet as where we are before COVID. So I decided, since I couldn't find anything that excited me, kaya ended up in law school na lang. But I've always felt like finance was really what I wanted to do, and that's why I pursued the CFA program, the Chartered Financial Analyst program. And in a way, it became very beneficial to me kasi in terms of personally marketing myself and personally creating a niche for my practice.
Yeah.
It's 'di ba? Parang it's a good combination. It's a good combination. And after finding out that our former the founding partner of our former firm followed a pretty similar track wherein 'di ba, he did take up law, but he practiced as an investment banker. Actually on the more on the legal side, but he
Hello?
is it still recording? Is it
Yes.
still recording? Did we get cut off?
It's still recording. Okay, sorry. You were saying he was practicing first his banking.
Yeah, kasi he started alam ko I don't but basta he crossed the lines parang a few times eh. So he was practicing as a lawyer, then became like an investment banker. I mean, that's why he became very good at managing all of these transactions. So eventually when he did return to legal practice, he was so effective because he approached things from the perspective of the client itself. So I think that's why all of the clients really appreciated his work. He was able to provide creative solutions
Yeah.
to the difficult problems that the clients were facing. So I mean that's I guess I'm just fortunate na even early on, even if it really wasn't planned, but that's how it ended up for me. So yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have a pretty good niche practice,
Mhm.
and in addition to having like a day job, diba? So I kind of get the best of both worlds.
Did you take the CFA exam before you entered law school?
I actually took it while in law school.
Ah.
So yeah, but my key kasi there is that I took it in secret, as in no one knew that I was studying for the CFA exams. Because at least with law school naman parang I was never a grade conscious person. So
Mm.
parang all I wanted to do was pass it. So parang I was always of the mindset that 'di ba any grade higher than the passing grade is hours of wasted effort, kasi you could have devoted some other those hours. Kasi diba, parang there's a ano in terms of yung effort to reward ratio mo, diba? Parang for
Yeah.
you to pass, parang you need to put in this number of hours of effort. Pero for you from the passing grade to get the top, like a perfect score, parang yung marginal benefit mo in terms of the grade versus the number of hours you put in, parang for me isn't beneficial anymore.
Uh-huh.
Diba? And I know naman, like for a lot of things, it's really just the skill of lawyering that you need to develop. It's not really just spending hours of time trying to memorize things you're only going to forget after the exam. Diba?
True.
So that's really what I focused on. So parang I knew naman I wasn't the smartest guy in the class, diba? Parang in terms of academics, I knew I wasn't the most hardworking because I'm inherently lazy. So I had to find, because diba, I had to find something to differentiate myself. And fortunately, I was pretty natural with numbers
Mm.
and finance. So parang inisip ko parang okay, I can't masyadong matatalino yung mga classmates ko, 'di ba? Parang they know everything. So I have to find something that will make me different. So yun, that's why I decided na even during law school to have my options, and also parang just also as a backup just in case I don't finish law school, 'di ba? Na parang hindi ako nagsayang din ng ano, at least I have something else to to use and utilize to eventually probably get a job or make another career out of, just in case I don't finish or I don't pass law school, diba?
What got you interested in numbers? Like, were you a math whiz when you were a kid? Where did it all begin?
Well, I've always been good. I've always gotten higher grades in the math side, and it's just because I was an inherently lazy person with math. Kasi diba parang the moment na gets mo na, parang tapos na gets mo na eh. No need to like read any further once you've understood the process. Parang everything else was just more mechanical na you just need to keep on just crunching it, diba? And you're just working more on efficiency and speed. Eh. So parang early on pa lang, parang I've performed well. So parang tumatak na sa isip ko na I was good at it. So since everyone was saying I was good at it, parang the more akong parang ginanahan. So the more akong pinanindigan na you're good at this particular field, diba? So parang I think that's an important lesson for parents. You just keep on telling your kids na magaling sila on something. Para lang diba? And then they might end up living up to it. Eh.
Yeah. We were talking about you being so interested in telling your friends about personal finance or financial literacy generally, but your friends before your friends seem to not be quite as interested as you. So, and this changed just recently. How was that?
Yeah, kasi like back in the day, like I guess high school and even college. High school kasi I started reading up on it na eh. Parang one of the things nga that got me, and just in terms of the backstory, like just to add to what I said earlier in terms of the interest in finance. Even as a kid kasi, my parents, this was a time when the Asian boom, diba? Like before the Asian financial crisis. So my parents would be investing in the stock market, and then they would be watching the news. Diba? May ticker tape pa nun eh. Dun sa mga news channels saying the stock prices. And then I would notice that my mom was like intently looking at it to seeing the price. And then she explained to me kind of how the stock market worked. And I was like so surprised na, ganun na lang? kumita ka na ng ganyan, like parang like you get like if you invest 40,000 in a particular stock, then yung umakyat ng 1,000 per share or something like that, kung 40 pesos yung share, then bilang kumita ka na ng 1,000 na parang ganun lang. So parang it kind of got me hooked more and more. So ever since I started high school pa lang, I started reading a lot of these stock market books. And even in college. So even in college noon, since I went to school in the States, so parang my dad would send me the money for tuition fee. I wouldn't pay it right away. So hindi nila alam, I actually availed of a payment plan with the school para I don't pay the whole entire amount muna. So in the meantime, while I'm not paying it, I invested it. I opened a stock brokerage account. They started investing it in the stock market. And then yun, parang kumita ako doon. So parang, syempre, I wanted to discuss things with my friends and with my other people. Pero all of my friends, parang syempre, they all found it boring, nerd, or whatever, ng mga ganyan. So parang I would always get teased for it kasi like there was no interest in it. Then literally, I had one friend that would literally, like in the middle of the conversation, as in she literally fell asleep when I was talking about it, diba? So parang ever since then, I've always had this insecurity na whenever I meet new people, like an acquaintance, and we get to talk about, parang ma-bring up what are your interests, ganyan, and I say finance, the stock market, or the economy, parang then we get into a conversation about it, which to me, parang mukha namang interested yung person na kausap ko. But because of all my friends, in the back of my head, is this person really interested or is this person just trying to be nice and just diba, continuing to have a conversation with me? So parang it always felt like parang I was boring. Like whenever I would talk about that kind of topic, it always felt na it was a boring topic. So I would always be so conscious about it. But now that we're all Trenta and above, di ba? Na parang doon ko rin na-realize kasi parang the same friends and other friends, I guess, that wasn't interested in those things before approached me. They tried to schedule dinners with me just to talk about their personal finances and trying to get like a stock market 101. So parang in my head, parang ngayon, interested ka na. So parang ibig sabihin, may mga pera ka na, may mga pang-invest na kayo. Malaki na yung kinikita ng mga to, di ba? So, I guess that's good, di ba? Kasi for most, it's really in your 30s that you start pretty much doing well for yourself, di ba? Kasi parang more or less middle management ka na eh. So parang you're kind of earning substantially more than what you were in diba? When you first started working as a fresh grad. So at least now, parang nagano siya. And ngayon, they're also starting to think about their families. Diba? Some of them, many are having kids already. So parang it starts to become serious.
Yeah.
So parang ngayon, at least maganda, parang sila na yung lumalapit sa akin. So parang in my head, kung nakinig lang kayo sa akin dati, diba? Parang kung hindi niyo ako tinulugan and kung hindi nyo lang ako, if you didn't sow all of these insecurities with me now. So ngayon, at least, dino-joke ko ngayon, kailangan mo na akong bayaran.
True.
for the advice, di ba?
So you started investing.
That's how,
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I started investing when I was a kid nga. Kasi when I asked
my
my
mom,
so parang all of my savings, actually, even younger pa. Kasi nung 1996, 1997, I was about grade 5, grade 6. Younger than that. But syempre yun, it wasn't really investing. It was more of just giving my parents savings and them telling me na, they put it in this particular stock. So I kept on checking the price of that stock and then computing in my head kung magkano na yung kinita ko, diba? Na ganyan. And then, actually, it's one of those early wins kasi like at the time, around 1998 also, the brother of my mom, the eldest brother of my mom, he got appointed as the president of PNB when PNB was at the time essentially the largest bank in the country. So parang to support him, diba? Parang kasi we believe na magaling talaga yung tito ko. He's such a super brilliant banker. So we all invested in PNB, diba? And then at the time, PNB shares were trading at around parang mga 38 or low 40s eh.
Mm.
So after a year or so, once he started to clean it up, biglang the stock price shot up to like 90 plus or over 100. So I practically doubled my savings eh. Kaya dun talaga ako na hook eh, like early wins eh. Kasi diba for most people the experience is different. They start investing in the stock market and then biglang ang dami nilang losses, then biglang traumatized na sila.
Yeah.
So sa akin baliktad. So that's what peaked a lot of the interest, then learning about the general finance concept, the subject of finance. So it's only like during school and now even during practice that you'll realize that the finance practice is actually so much broader than the stock market. Eh, diba? There's corporate finance, there's investment banking, there's asset management, but all of it is like players in this bigger financial system that we have. You have insurance, which I'm actually a part of also now. So I've been fortunate enough na when we were practicing in the law firm that's focused on corporate law, we had a lot of transactional practice that had a lot of financial transactions. Then I ended up moving to an asset management firm, which firm invests the money, diba? Invests the money in the entities. And now I'm also connected with an insurance company, diba? So parang I've kind of come full circle. So both the regulatory and legal framework that the financial professionals run around in, parang I got a experience on, and then now being a player in it also, diba? Not just an advisor to the players, which is typically what lawyers do.
What naman would
So yun, that's the
advise, let's say fresh grads who are just about to earn their money? Where should they put their money in?
For fresh grads, presumably you're not earning that much anyway, diba? So parang in terms of assuming that I don't know kung yung magiging listeners mo are the Arenians, the Lasallians, and the ano. But normally kasi parang syempre for I guess for a lot of people, parang when they graduate, it depends eh. Kasi some people are expected to be breadwinners right away. Eh. Then some people are wala namang expectations, diba? So parang it's not gonna it's no different than a fresh grad or not, or like someone in their 30s or not, but it's really a case-to-case basis type of thing. But for a fresh grad, assuming that you don't have any responsibilities yet, your investment really is in your skills first eh. Diba? Parang you don't want to focus on trying to accumulate wealth kasi your base, diba? Your salary is pretty low yet. So what you do is whenever you can, try and develop the skills and get as much experience as possible to increase your earning capacity. Diba? Na parang similar to us, diba? Like tayo when we were lawyers, delayed na tayo by 4 years because we took up law school. Then when we started with a law firm, we weren't really earning that much. But at the same time, we were learning and we were building our skills. Eh. Parang it's more of an end game. Eh. So at that time, you build your skills, build your capacity para to justify a higher earning capacity later on. Diba? But if you can really afford to save, diba? I mean, it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't. Syempre, like if you attend a lot of the financial planning or personal finance seminars, it's going to sound like a broken record. They're always going to tell you to start as early as possible, and they're probably going to show you a graph showing the magic of compound interest. Kasi which is really true, eh, diba? Na parang interest earning interest. It's really going to be exponential your growth, diba? But syempre, so you're trying to balance it out between creating or learning as much and building your earning capacity in terms of your skills, and then trying to save as much, diba? Trying to save or trying to build your base, your investment portfolio, the base of your investment portfolio, which hopefully will grow later on substantially, diba? Or start growing already. But for Filipinos kasi typical culture mo is really just to spend and to enjoy, and I'm actually super guilty in that aspect also, na parang I wasn't really parang I would spend a lot, like I would splurge a lot on alcohol and gadgets. Not so much clothes, but diba? I mean tayo, diba? We would be drinking parang drinking like a real lawyer.
Like there's no tomorrow.
Like there's no tomorrow. But fortunately naman for us, diba? Kaya pa nung katawan natin nun. Ngayon kasi parang medyo nagsa-slow down eh. So yeah, so for fresh grads, yeah, just building capacity then if you can save and learning how to invest, learning these general principles in finance and if you can start investing and learning it, diba? Parang it's really gonna pay big dividends in the future.
Is it correct to say that you should only start investing when you have disposable income? Because there are some naman who practice this when they earn their income, they already set aside a portion. Parang pay yourself first. And by pay, they mean put it into savings first. And then later na the expenses. Like whatever is left, that's what you can spend.
Yeah, I mean that's a good rule. That's a really good rule to set aside. Kasi one of the things you need to consider when you're really planning, if you really want to establish and follow a good financial plan, is setting your limits. Kasi tendency mo kasi is if you decide to spend and then whatever's left, that's the only thing you'll save. We're all humans so it's really gonna be subject to a lot of temptations and then it's easy for you, diba? There are a lot of psychological traps for you to be able to justify certain purchases as needs when in reality they are wants
Yeah.
diba? Well, so ang mangyayari niyan, you end up justifying it na hindi kailangan to. But if you, I mean, that's one of the things. It like sticking to a particular formula, like what you mentioned. It's really just, I guess, to address certain psychological weaknesses that we may have about saving. So that's a good if kaya mo when you're young and early on, if you can do that practice, it's also one of those things that's gonna pay dividends in the future. Actually, like it's one thing saving a portion of your earnings regularly. So the next step is how to manage that portion diba? That portfolio. Kasi for most people that parang aren't knowledgeable yet about what's out there, what kind of options they have in terms of investment, they just put things in the bank, diba?
Yeah.
Parang lahat ng savings mo. Kasi I'm saving, tinatabi ko lang sa bank. Ang problem kasi with putting things in the bank alone is that over time, you're actually losing money because of inflation. So, especially now, diba? Like interest rates in the bank for like regular savings account are less than 1%.
Yeah.
So, inflation nowadays is hovering in the 2 to 2.5%. Diba? So, the difference between the interest that you're earning in the bank and inflation, ibig sabihin, you're losing that much every year. Diba? Kasi the things you can purchase back then isn't the same in the future. Diba? Kasi diba, that's inflation is the rise of the overall prices in a certain economy, diba? So parang what I could have purchased before when I had it now, I can't purchase in the future, even if that in nominal terms I earned interest and it's a little bit higher. But if the prices of your expenses grow more than what you're earning with your savings, then lugi ka pa rin. So that's when you start thinking na you should, once you set aside certain savings like your safety net that you may need eventually in terms of immediate funds for emergencies or whatnot, you have to start thinking further out na parang where will I put that money na once you've established your base, diba? That will able to generate you a better return, better than inflation. So that's when the investing starts to happen, and that's when a lot of the personal finance lessons or subjects because starts to benefit you kasi parang you're starting to be aware of your different options, and then you start building your portfolio and tailor fitting it to you, diba? Your particular risk preferences, what your status in life is, diba? Kasi, like, if you're, let's say you're someone that doesn't have any responsibilities, you don't have kids, you're not supporting your parents, so parang whatever you're earning is just yourself. So actually, just for yourself. So actually, you can actually just take more risks, diba? So parang in terms of return kasi, diba, there's a risk reward type of scenario, So parang the more risks you take, the better your expected returns are supposed to be. But baliktad din, because there's risk, you can actually lose your investment as well, diba? But because you're in a situation that or you're in a position that allows you to take on certain risks, in an ideal world, you'll get a better return especially over time.
Right. Speaking of options and let's say building, when one is trying to build his or her own investment portfolio, what would you recommend? Or what are the financial products available and what would you recommend? In layman's
Well,
terms.
ultimately any investment naman is the underlying is either you take in equity, parang shares of stock, or you take or you invest in debt, diba? Credit, parang in effect para ka nagpapautang, diba? Nagpapautang ka and you're earning interest on the money you lend. And then kung equity, you're investing in a company hoping that kung kumita yung company, babalik din sa'yo, diba?
Yeah.
So that's one of the options available for you to invest directly. Diba? You can open a brokerage account and invest directly in the stock market, or if you have friends starting up a business, diba? Pwede kang, kasi ba, like if similar to a friend approaching you for money, diba? Kasi may negosyo sila. You can actually invest in, sige, 10% ito bibigay ko sa'yo, diba? Ito yung kapitalan mo. That's equity. Or pwede rin sila lumapit sa'yo, pwedeng pautang. Diba? Papautangin mo sila, pero you charge them an interest rate. So yun yung mga returns mo, diba? Either through equity or through interest. So in the context of an investment portfolio, you can actually invest directly also parang in the stock market, except that the scale is bigger, diba? So parang in the stock market, you're allowed to buy shares in all of these big corporations. Or pwede ka rin bumili ng mga bonds or notes issued by the same corporations also, pero in the form of debt, diba? Except yung pag debt, you get interest payment, so medyo mas fixed. That's actually why they call it fixed income, kasi yung income mo is fixed. So it's really more predictable. But since you're already a creditor, like you're umutang lang sa'yo, your principal is safer, diba? Ikaw yung unang babayaran, assuming that the company goes bankrupt. Ikaw yung unang babayaran before mabayaran yung mga shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so essentially those are your two traditional type of options, diba? So parang in a way it depends on how much effort and time you really want to put into it. Kasi if you're willing to put in the time and you're willing to learn it, you can invest directly kasi ikaw na yung mamimili, ikaw na yung mag-analyze ng mga companies, whether you invest in their stock or whether you invest in their debt. But for most people, they don't want that, diba? Parang they feel that they're not ready, they're not capable. That's when a lot of these new products by investment managers or insurance companies come into play. Kasi parang there you have they create a product for you, like a certain fund, like an asset. If you're an asset management company, they create a fund. They establish a fund and they say that this fund will invest in equities. Tapos when they invest in equities, may ganito yung particular strategy. These are the companies we're going to invest in. May mga funds naman that invest in debt na fixed income. So parang ito yung fixed income strategy. Then you have mga balanced funds also. So these funds, now you can actually invest in these funds. So the common structure for these funds are mutual funds or UITFs or VULs. So these funds may mga underlying investments and underlying strategies. So ultimately, these funds, you when you invest in these funds, they take your money, and then you have professionals investing for you, diba? Based on the strategy that has been established. Mm-hmm. So sila na yung nag-i-invest ngayon into the stocks and bonds that we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. So yun yung mga traditional options mo. The difference lang, I mean, mutual funds and UITFs are pretty much similar. The only difference is actually the main difference is the legal structure. Because I mean, as lawyers naman, we understand that you create a trust relationship with UITFs and with mutual funds, it's a corporation. But for most people, the distinction isn't really material. Yung VUL lang yung medyo na iba. Kasi the VUL is actually primarily an insurance product. So parang you tend to get the best of both worlds. Kasi because it's an insurance product, you get life insurance protection, but also a underlying fund that would be able to provide you with certain returns, diba? Based on the fund that you choose. Kung stock or bond fund, diba? Kung mas conservative or not. So in terms of which strategy you pick, that will depend on yung risk appetite mo. Kasi typically when you invest in equities, it's supposed to be more risky, but your expected return is supposed to be higher also versus yung fixed income, diba? Kasi it's less risk kasi you get paid first in the event of default, but your earning is capped at the interest rate.
Sorry,
so
just
yeah,
to
I mean those are the different options. Then when you're
just to define the terms for our listeners who don't necessarily know what they stand for, MFs are mutual funds, UITFs are unit investment trust funds, and VULs are variable. What is it?
Variable universal life insurance or linked VULs.
Okay.
Life ba or linked? Variable universal linked. Yeah, variable universal life insurance, parang ganun. Kasi you buy units also in that. So normally you can actually simulate a VUL also, parang by investing in a fund and just getting a separate life insurance product also. So actually when you're building your portfolio, it's actually two-pronged. Parang you're looking at your investment management, diba? Your financial management, picking the right investments. But actually what's important also there is risk management. Diba? And that's actually where the insurance component comes in. Kasi parang when you create an investment portfolio, parang you're predicting that things will go according to plan. But as we know in life, it's not things don't go according to plan. It's like the constant thing, diba? There's always going to be deviations to certain plans. So actually that's where insurance comes in. Kasi insurance can be in the form of health insurance, life insurance, motor insurance, house insurance, diba? Kasi parang it allows you to manage your risks, the risks that day to day we're all facing that can potentially be catastrophic to your financial well-being, diba? Parang kasi like let's say part of your assets and part of your plan and you bought a car, you bought a house. What if nabangga ka, na total yung car mo, or what if nasunog yung bahay mo? It parang it completely derails all your years and years of financial planning and I guess prudent investment strategy, diba? Kasi only one event can derail everything. Tapos ultimately, like for some, like if you're thinking about it in the context of the family, parang sometimes pag ikaw naman yung namatay and then everything that you've been planning for, parang nawawala for your loved ones. So that's when insurance comes into play. Kasi insurance it's a tool for you to manage all the different risks you have para just in case any of these catastrophic events materializes, you'll still be able to be whole, diba? Kahit papano. I mean, sometimes you won't be completely whole before the catastrophic event, but at least you won't be too damaged na hindi ka na makaka-recover, diba? So, I mean, that's how it's important. Ang problem lang kasi is sometimes because in terms of the different financial products, insurance kasi is the most aggressive in terms of distribution. Sometimes parang a lot of people tend to shove it in your face. And it's also just because, diba, parang for most advisors that you talk to, they're actually, like I mentioned earlier, they're actually insurance agents. So they really just try and push the product. So yun lang yung you have to be a little bit more wary of, because there's an inherent conflict of interest between some of the advisors that you're talking to, because they're trying to sell you something. So what they sell to you might not be the most appropriate for your situation.
That's right. So would you say in the order of priority, let's say you have a limited amount to invest in, would you recommend that people go for insurance first, or let's say the VUL option before venturing into MFs, UITFs, or real estate?
Well, I mean, I said earlier, parang it's a case-to-case basis, di ba? Kasi pag insurance kasi, like life, especially particular life insurance, parang sino ba yung, who's gonna suffer if you die? Di ba? Who's gonna suffer? If um your family is well off naman, parang they're not depending on you for their living expenses or anything, di ba? And assuming that you die, parang wala namang mawawala sa kanila, 'di ba? So parang what's the insurance protection for, 'di ba? So kasi the difference kasi when you invest in these VULs also, your returns aren't going to be as big kasi you're also paying for the insurance protection, the insurance coverage, 'di ba? As opposed to investing in a plain fund like a mutual fund or a UITF. So your returns are actually are actually not going to be as big because of that, because you're paying essentially the insurance premiums from the returns of the fund or from the VUL fund itself. So on a case to case basis, 'di ba? Parang if you aren't earning that much but a lot of people are still depending on you, you might want to get a VUL or invest or secure a insurance policy just in case that something unfortunate happens and then you die. Those people depending on you diba, won't feel the immediate loss kasi parang kahit paano may life insurance na papasok, and then you'll still be able to provide for them even after your death. But if that's not a factor naman, you might, and if you're young and if you're young, so you can afford to take more risks, diba? Kasi kahit wipe out ka, you still have, diba? You're still working, you still have your labor in place, diba? The opportunity to earn income through your labor, and then you can take more risks and invest in stocks, which is riskier, diba? With expecting that your eventual return will be higher. Diba? Parang kasi kung maliit na nga yan, diba? So you want to get a better return to kind of make up for it, para to grow it faster.
What about investing in real estate? And diba recently Ayala came
The
out
REIT?
with their REIT, yeah.
Well, I mean, the Ayala REIT itself, that's a separate discussion altogether, the investment merits of it. But in terms of investing in real estate, that's kind of like an alternative type of asset class. Kasi you're investing in real. So far, kasi swerte kasi tayo, like for people in our generation, the experience we have over the past 10 years when we've practically started to learn about these things and started to care about these things have been really good. Because since 2010, our economy has experienced very, very good growth. And one of the driving factors there is real estate. So ang bilis, exponential nun na parang condo prices nun in the fourth, you could actually buy for parang 60 to 70,000 per square meters back in 2011. So before COVID, at its peak, parang the same condo would sell for 300,000 per square meters. So that's the capital appreciation pa. Pero in the interim, you could have derived rental income also. And the rental income back then, yung expected returns mo from rent could range at the time siguro mga 5 to 6% of what your investment amount is. So parang on average noon over the past 10 years, parang I'm just throwing out rough figures here, no? Parang you're looking at 5 to 6% rental income plus another 8 to 10% in capital appreciation. So ang ganda talaga over the past 10 years. Ang ganda talaga nung returns mo. So parang now, yun yung problem kasi this is the first challenge, like with the whole COVID thing, this is the first challenge of our generation. This is actually the first recession we're experiencing as adults.
Yeah.
So parang doon natin na-realize na parang holy shit, parang our jobs are not as secure as we thought it would be, diba? Then our investments, that's when the risks start to come in, na parang hindi lang pala puro pataas yung mga investments natin. There's a potential for you to experience certain losses. So parang, that said, parang right now, yung real estate market is supposed to be one of those things that would be affected by this crisis. Because for many buyers also, they took out loans, diba? They took out loans thinking that their earning capacity would be the same or would be growing over time. But with all of the retrenchments that are happening, people losing their jobs, people getting pay cuts, they might not afford to be able to pay the interest associated with the loans that were used to purchase real estate investments, diba? So they might be forced to sell, diba? When you're forced to sell, parang demand and supply. So more people selling, and then there's no demand kasi no one's buying because no one, diba? Why would you buy something knowing that the future is uncertain? So that's when the prices may start to fall, diba? So parang I think nung 1998 yung real estate prices parang fell by about 30 to 40%. It's something that we didn't realize, especially for our generation, because as far as our personal experience is concerned, all we've seen pag real estate is going up and up and up and up. And syempre, a lot of these brokers, a lot of these real estate agents, that's what they're going to advertise, diba? Na it's an investment, it's a safe investment, it's real estate, but ultimately it's the same concept naman with any company or with any equities. There are risks involved. Right. So what's good naman about a REIT product, which what you mentioned, is that it allows you to invest in real estate, diba? Real properties without actually buying the property itself, because you're able to invest in a real estate fund. Because actually the REIT is actually a fund. So the fund that invests specifically, instead of stocks, they're investing in real properties. So parang ikaw, kasi parang when you're investing in real estate, tapos paparent mo, parang poproblemahin mo pa yun, na parang kukuha ka pa ng broker or you try and advertise it yourself to get some renters, parang mag-income. Then kung mag-lapse yung lease, tapos hindi renew. So may mga months ka na bakante na naghahanap ka ng bagong renters, and ikaw, personal time and effort mo. So that's what a REIT does. Kasi you have professional REIT fund managers that will be able to manage it, and property managers that will be able to manage the properties owned by the REIT. So sila na gumagawa lahat, diba? And then any income will now be paid to the REIT shareholders. So in a way, parang you made it, you kind of converted real property investment in a fund-like structure, like a mutual fund or like a UITF. So that's basically it. So it's good. It's good in a sense that under the REIT law, one of the purposes is democratizing wealth. So it's good in a sense that it allows access to more people. Kasi syempre yung minimum investment mo for a lot of condos or a lot of real properties would probably be in the millions, diba? At least 1 to 2 million for a studio condo, diba? So at least now with a REIT, it allows you just to buy shares na parang with just a couple of thousand pesos, you're able to invest in a real property already, diba? And get the same type of benefits. So that's what a REIT does. But specifically on the Ayala REIT itself, I have some reservations kasi there. Kasi parang if you really read the prospectus, parang, as you know, is a document that outlines all of the investment merits, diba? The situation of the company and what you're investing in and everything. Ang concern ko kasi with the Ayala REIT itself is that they aren't really putting in the real properties in the REIT. If you read it carefully, ang nilalagay lang nila yung mga lease. So the REIT itself, which is the thing you're investing in, isn't going to be owning the real property that of the Ayalas. So the Ayala Land is still keeping, diba? Is still keeping the title to all of these properties. Ang nilalagay lang nila yung lease. So you're actually paying for shares of the lease income.
Nice.
So yun lang. So parang you can't expect the capital appreciation, diba? Like when we talked about real properties, yung return mo kasi is in the form of rental income and capital appreciation. So with the current with the current investment prospects of that particular REIT, parang medyo I have a little bit I have some reservations of the capital appreciation component kasi walang capital eh, it's all leases eh, 'di ba? Yun yung medyo I'm not sure kung nakikita ng mga tao. And if you look at it also in terms of alternative investments, 'di ba? Parang kasi a REIT kasi you're investing it's closer to equity kasi than a bond, eh, 'di ba? So if the rate of return you're getting from the REIT in terms of dividends is like 5 to 6%, tapos yung makukuha mong return for let's say an Ayala bond is 5% din. In terms of risk, 'di ba? Parang you're better off going for the bond, 'di ba? You're better off going for a bond kasi that's parang fixed eh. The return is guaranteed. And then yung risk mo in terms of credit is stronger kasi 'di ba? Pag nabangka, mauuna kang bayaran before that. So parang that's ano eh, 'di ba? That's kind of one of those things that you have to really look beyond the investment itself, and that you really have to read and analyze carefully, assuming that you're investing personally and you're the one doing your own analysis. But obviously, the more convenient option is just to invest in these funds, diba? Invest in these funds na you have professionals, diba? Professionals actually like us na in the insurance company or in the asset management company that will analyze things for you, similar to the kind of analysis that I showed you earlier in terms of the REIT, diba? In terms of the investment prospect.
So in closing, I wanted to ask.
So closing na pala. Sorry, I had so much fun. I hope I didn't bore you.
No worries, no worries.
Ito naman yung mga conversation topics ko, di ba?
Oh, in fairness naman. So in closing, my last question would be, what would you consider your biggest mistake money-wise, and what did you learn from that mistake?
Biggest mistake money-wise? Not in general, medyo may weakness ako in terms of binge spending. I mean, just you just mentioned that at midnight magsa-start na yung Lazada 8/8 sale on August 6. So I have quite a lot of things in my cart already and just waiting to check out, diba? To check out on. So parang yun, but that's kind of like the and syempre spending a lot on experiences, but that's the millennial naman in us talking eh. Kasi millennial pa naman tayo kahit Trenta na tayo, but we're the older millennials, so we kind of still value a lot of these experiences. So parang for me, one of the bigger regrets actually, now that you mentioned it, na naisip ko, one of the bigger regrets I had, hindi naman siya regret kasi I had a lot of fun with it, is buying an expensive car when I was young. Actually, I didn't buy it. My parents bought it for me. But in hindsight, parang it would have been better off just invested, especially at the time when it was bought for me. It was also 2008 during the crisis, before all of this big stock market boom happened. Diba? Parang if I had the chance to do it over, knowing what I know now, I would have just gotten something a little bit more practical and invested the difference, and then just enjoyed the benefits now, the good returns that happened when our economy started booming. But that said, iba rin yung feeling eh at the time eh. You're young, mayabang, feel mo talaga lahat, diba, na ganyan. So yeah, I don't think I would have done it differently, but in hindsight, from a financial perspective, that's probably what I should have done, but I probably wouldn't have anyway. So yun.
All right. On that note, thanks so much, Julio, for guesting on this show. So much financial maturity in one night. I'll just stop.
I know, it's so good. Such grown-up talks.
And Chika after. Bye.
Yes. Bye. Thank you.
Hello, we're back again with Paula of the Cocolicious team for the third installment of the VCO Knowledge Corner. Hey, Paula.
Hey, Paige. Great to be back.
So this week, I wanted to know more about the characteristics of Cocolicious VCO. Is there a difference between virgin and extra virgin coconut oil?
Well, essentially, there's really no difference in terms of overall contents of its fatty acids. The lauric acid content has more or less the same amount in pure coconut oil. And so you have to remember as well the use of extra virgin coconut oil has not been defined by industry or national standards. It's used loosely by marketers, and you have to remember what makes it extra virgin.
I see. So there's really no difference.
Yes.
What about the difference between virgin coconut oil and MCT oil or liquid coconut oil?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. For starters, they are very different. To start with, virgin coconut oil is an all natural food, as discussed in our earlier episodes, and has the most lauric content, which is 45 to 50% standard. The MCT oil and the liquid coconut oil are synthesized oils using coconut as raw material. So they don't bring everything in, they only get that lauric acid content. So essentially you don't have the whole package, you just get like a bite of it.
It's not as pure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. What about, I'm curious about the taste of Cocolicious in particular, Cocolicious VCO compared to other brands.
Okay. So if any of you have tried our VCO Cocolicious, you'll notice that there's somewhat a raw taste. Like it feels like, oh, wow, it feels a bit oily. And it has there's a big difference with the other brands because of how it's processed. So we use a wet process using centrifuge, which basically spins around the oil to extract the VCO itself. And so in this process, there is no heat involved, and there's no taking out of the odor as well. So it might smell very unrefined.
All right. Thanks so much, Paolo. We'll see you again in the next one.
Okay, thanks, Paige.